This month, the top two largest crypto exchanges in the world announced they would delist non-compliant stablecoins in the European Union. Notably, Circle's USDC will stay listed as they are the first global stablecoin issuer to secure a stablecoin license in the EU. Joining us to discuss global policy are Dante Disparte. He's the Chief Strategy Officer and Head of Global Policy at Circle, and Candace Kelly. She's the Chief Legal Officer of the Stellar Development Foundation. Welcome to the show, Candace and Dante.
Thank you. Great to be here.
All right. So we did hear from Coinbase, and Binance has expressed similarly that they will be delisting non-compliant tokens, stable coins, in the EU by December 30th. Yet USDC managed to stay listed. So, I mean, how did you do that? How were you able to secure the first license? And what kind of, rules and audits or, transparency needs to happen for that to happen?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think the Markets and Crypto Assets Framework, Europe's new far-reaching rules for crypto, give the industry what we have asked for a long time: legal certainty and regulatory clarity across the entire EU and common market. But with that, their cost, right? Their cost of doing business. And I think in the European Union, if you want to be a compliant stablecoin issuer, what the EU calls an e-money token, you need to be a regulated e-money issuer across all of Europe. And so Circle chose France as the base of regulatory operations in Europe. We have an e-money license out of France, and as a result, USDC and our euro-denominated stablecoin EURC are the only two major stablecoins in circulation that are MiCA compliant.
Mm-hmm. What kind of level of transparency is needed to be compliant?
Yeah, I think the requirements in Europe specifically, I think, it goes well beyond what would be required in many other countries with stablecoins, and in some ways enshrines Circle's way of doing business as law. We were the first of the major players to provide monthly attestations. We're audited as a company. And the e-money framework in Europe, of course, requires very strict reserve standards, but it also requires that you care about financial crime compliance and a whole host of these other issues. So it's a very conservative regime that looks more like e-money than it would internet funny money.
Mm-hmm. And Candace, did Stellar have a hand in guiding policy in the EU at all?
We certainly engage in the EU and across the world, and we've always sort of subscribed to what Circle did as an industry participant before there were regulations. And as there are not so many clear regulations across the globe, I think Circle has been a standard setter, and we have been very aligned with putting forth those policies and procedures and that transparency that you just emphasized that Circle has had at its core from the start.
I guess, Candace, going back to you, I mean, Stellar and Circle do a lot of work together in this world. But Stellar also supports a lot of emerging markets. We've heard a lot over the last 2 days about people who really love this sort of dynamic of a USDC, Stellar to a MoneyGram, whatever it may be. And I'm sure a lot of those jurisdictions haven't thought about this. So, do you expect there to be more regulation in those emerging markets? Or is it really something like France taking the lead and then, seeing how it goes first?
Yeah, I think that there are always certain jurisdictions that take the lead. In many circumstances, that's the United States. Obviously, that is not the case right now. But the EU with MiCA has really taken the first step forward. And I think there are a lot of jurisdictions that are looking to the EU. I think if you look at privacy law, GDPR is very similar. There's a patchwork still today in the United States of privacy laws, but there's GDPR, and a lot of countries, if you are GDPR compliant, you're going to be fine in a lot of the emerging markets because they either follow it or they haven't reached their own decision on what the regulations should look like. Mm-hmm. But it's a high bar.
I would say there are regionally within Europe, even though some differences, for instance, in Switzerland with FINMA, they recently released guidance that they want all stablecoin issuers to verify wallet addresses. And I just wonder, what do you thought on these finer details?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Switzerland is not a part of the EU, but Switzerland as a jurisdiction, I've worked extensively in Switzerland in my past life. And FINMA as a primary regulator is also a very, very forward-leaning and pro-innovation regulator. But the rules that are emerging in most countries around the world, especially when it comes to stablecoin activity, is they're trying to reconcile this innovation in the banking and payment system. Stablecoins broadly will be treated as electronic money in most jurisdictions around the world. And what we could expect of Switzerland is a regime that would be principled, that would protect consumers, obviously guard the role of the banking system more generally, but look to harmonize either with MiCA or harmonize with rules in different jurisdictions around the world. So we're watching the developments in Switzerland closely.
Really, they want to whitelist all wallet addresses from stablecoin issues. Is that, I don't know?
Yeah, I mean, I think
onerous?
when you talk to regulators as much as I have over the years, I think one of the things that regulators gain a lot from in licensing companies like Circle and working with us at the policy level is sort of an operating level understanding of how to ensure regulations are principled versus prescriptive. If you make too prescriptive a set of regulations with crypto, the industry is evolving too fast, the technologies are evolving too fast, and so the more principled the regulations are, the better. And I would expect in Switzerland relatively principled rules to emerge.
Mm-hmm.
And Candace, you mentioned the U.S. should be the one leading this, but really Europe has allowed it. Knowing that just the state of the world now, do you expect post-election, regardless of who wins, that we will start to see some change happening there?
Absolutely. I think what the changes are may be a little bit different depending on how the election turns out, but there are certainly plenty of people on the Hill who have gotten, I mean, in the 5 years that I've been in this space, the difference in the maturity of the conversations that we are having and the people who really understand it and really understand the value both all the way from the financial inclusion aspects to the national security aspects, and can have sophisticated thoughts on the topic. And so I think that the White House will have a new leader. There will certainly be changes on the Hill, but there will still be a lot of people who are there who are champions and really become experts in the space.
Mm-hmm.
And Dante, you talk to these folks. I'm assuming you are hearing from both sides that they want the innovation angle to happen. And so do you think that there's a younger swell of people who are coming up and saying, let's not play these old games and let's actually do something?
Yeah. I mean, my broad policy message in the U.S. was recently, crypto is purple. That we as an industry and I think policymakers as policymakers would be very well served in not politicizing or weaponizing a novel technology. The Biden administration was the very first U.S. administration to issue an executive order looking at crypto broadly, and it embarked on a whole-of-government study of this innovation, which was the first time we had a conversation in D.C. about crypto and blockchain infrastructure being meaningful beyond finance, and thinking it as more of just foundational technology across the board. And I'm encouraged, despite the tension and despite the partisanship in presidential politics, that there's permanence in the Senate and in the House on the interest of getting stablecoin legislation across the finish line. Maxine Waters recently called for a grand bargain to be made, even in the lame duck session. And I think that pent-up interest needs a legislative outlet.
Mm-hmm. Have you delved into the policies of Asia? How do they compare to Europe and what you're seeing in America?
Yeah, I mean, look, we have, it may sound ambitious, but we're broadcasting from London, so to describe a model in which the sun would never set on Circle's operations was actually something we had set course on when I joined the company. And we're a major payments institution in Singapore, so we're fully licensed in Singapore, obviously fully licensed in Europe out of France. And there's a lot of developments in Asia. It's no sooner than Singapore started really re-engaging the industry. You saw Hong Kong also beginning to come back online. You see very principled rules in Japan that enable passportability of regulated stablecoins into the Japanese market. And I think a sleeping giant in Asia in some respects is South Korea, a country with an enormous industrial base and technology base and a long history in sort of being at the cutting edge of these technologies. And so you could envision not only lots of competition across Asian jurisdictions, but my sincere hope is that we start to see harmonization among them. So that's my big policy message to the world, is you'd be well served in regulating crypto assets and bringing us into the perimeter, but you would also be very well served in creating rules that are harmonized. So we keep the properties of this being an internet of value versus having a firewall stand between what these innovations could really do for people.
Are you seeing the same? Who's the leader here? Is it Asia? Is it Europe? And I don't know about America, but
I don't know who the leader is. I don't know. There are different jurisdictions that have strengths and weaknesses. I think what Dante was talking about in terms of the harmonization is what we're really trying. I think the industry has a really important role to play because people like Dante and I do travel around the world, and there are certainly other bodies that bring that harmonization, but I think that engaging and really emphasizing how important that the borderless nature of the blockchain technology is and how the regulations do need to stay at that principled level, and they do need to have harmonization of with respect to standards and the regulations as well.
Well, at least in Europe, now that USDC will stay listed, I saw that Tether is among those include that may be delisted. They say that they will try to find a solution to comply with the regulations. But is this a chance for USDC to have a flippening and overcome and become the, closer to becoming the top stablecoin in the game? Because Tether has 70% of the total market cap in stablecoins. Do you see that emerging in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, the European regime is, in my view, what we should expect of major jurisdictions around the world. Brazil, for example, in the early part of 2025, will embark on a set of rules for stablecoin issuers, a set of rules for crypto assets. And my sense is that this is a country that has mirrored MiCA, mirrored GDPR and its privacy laws, and very likely to mirror the standards set by MiCA. And frankly, the onus is on the crypto exchanges in Europe. That's the next point of policy pressure and regulatory leverage and you saw from Binance and you saw from Coinbase very clear signals to the market about this change. Our products really depend on digital asset exchanges, and they also, of course, depend on the broader blockchain ecosystem. We're trusted because we're well regulated, and if you want to build for the long term, you have to do it inside the regulatory perimeter. What that does to circulation in the short run, I think, matters for the here and now, but I think if you're looking at the very, very long opportunity horizon for digital assets and stablecoins, we're building for that future.
I see that over $4 billion in value has been exchanged using USDC on the Stellar network. Companies leveraging USDC on Stellar include MoneyGram, Circle, Bitso, Mercado Bitcoin, CoinMe, and Fireblocks. Candace, can you tell me a bit about how USDC, these stablecoins, are being used?
Yeah, well, from the foundation standpoint, our mission is creating equitable access to the global financial system. So we get very excited to see the use cases where there really are problems that are being solved by this new technology. And the use of USDC and the stablecoin is so important to that. So one use is the UNHCR that is using the MoneyGram integration and Circle and a non-custodial wallet called Vibrant to deliver aid to internally displaced Ukrainians. And to date, over $5 million have been delivered in this way on a weekly basis. Families in the Ukraine are receiving USDC in a wallet, and then they can cash it out at MoneyGram. Many of them have bank accounts, and so MoneyGram can also do ACH wires. We see similar things in the global south. In Colombia, there's a town called San Francisco where the decaf wallet is being used with USDC. It was a very cash-dependent community, and now the people there are able to do work for folks outside of their very remote community and earn in USDC because they couldn't do that sort of work and they couldn't earn money outside of their community. So now it's really changing their financial literacy, their financial picture. They're being able to save money, put it towards education of their children. And so it's really a game changer. And I think that sometimes when we sit in London or we sit in Washington, D.C., it's hard to remember those stories and how much this really is a transformational technology. And the stablecoin, that stable store of value that Circle has proven to many regulators is true, is really making great changes in people's lives.
Dante, my final question for you is, I keep thinking about stablecoins really being the true unlock of the blockchain's opportunity. And when we interviewed Paolo from Tether, he did mention the idea that emerging markets were his main focus. But I also see such a value in large opportunity transfers for business. So where do you see as the future of stablecoins for use cases and utility as we move forward, is it emerging markets? Is it for kind of lubricating larger business opportunities at scale and at speed? What's the real unlock for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is no question a dollar store of value use case is the existing killer app for stablecoins. And in some respects, as Candace just described, the thing that is unlocking demonstrable proof of what our original promises were in crypto. Democratizing access to payments and banking and money. And then I think there's this entire machine-to-machine economy and internet-scale economy that is indeed going to unlock. Your and my financial needs don't take bank holidays. Our money shouldn't either. And I think of this as an innovation that can completely behave within the perimeter of regulated finance, but it also has to be banked, it has to be trusted, it has to be completely liquid around the world. And I think we would be well served in ending the sort of anti-establishment narrative in crypto and start to assume that this is a convergence technology that will converge with what regulators would like to see, what central banks would like to see, and frankly, what people and markets need. So I think there's space for all of these use cases to coexist.
Candace, you've gone on record saying that you've been talking to central banks about CBDCs. Can you give us any insights on those talks, which central banks you may be talking to?
Well, we talked to various central banks, and our role really is just to make sure that they understand the technology and all of the ways that that can be used to issue compliant assets, and whether that's a stablecoin or a CBDC, we're not here to pick winners. We just are here to advise, and I think that it's been shown that the Stellar network is really well suited for any kind of regulated asset. One exciting area is it's not technically a CBDC, but there's a consortium of banks in Ukraine who have started the Transparent Network, and that's integrating with merchants and being able to have an e-hryvnia that is used. And I think particularly when we see the future where there's going to be a lot of money going in for reconstruction there, that it's really important for a country like Ukraine to have that transparency in their local currency, because they've clearly had some issues with a reputation of corruption, and that transparency that the blockchain brings, and then being able to have their own local currency on the blockchain is going to be a really significant part of making sure that the funds that they're going to need are freely and comfortably given to them, because people will know that it's where it's going and how it's being spent.
All right, Candace, Dante, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Enjoy the conference.
Thank you.
Right,
Thank you
that
so
was
much.
Thanks again.
Candace Kelly, Chief Legal Officer of the Stellar Development Foundation, as well as Dante Disparte. He's the Chief Strategy Officer and Head of Global Policy at Circle. Stay tuned. We'll be back after the break.